everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Risk Matrix with myself, Dr. Martin, and Mr. James Junkin.
Roll Tide, y'all are in the Matrix, and it's an exciting episode of what we have to talk to today.
Sure thing. James, we're going to talk about, we talked about this before we got on the air, we're going to talk about technological advances in safety. But before we do that, can you give us a little note from our sponsor, powered by Veriforce?
Yeah, absolutely. Today's episode of the Risk Matrix is sponsored by Swift Learning, Inc. Swift Learning is committed to making a meaningful impact to keep workers safe physically and mentally. Swift provides software as solutions, e-learning platforms with over 70 occupational health, safety, environmental, mental health, and well-being courses. So Veriforce clients and customers can receive up to 30% off on Swift products by visiting swiftlearning.com/Sahara-Veriforce.
Terrific. So let's get into the discussion, James. Technology, right? And how it's changed. Shame to say, I've been in this business for, well, I'm not ashamed to say, but I'm going to let it out of the bag. I've been in this business for 33 years, and technology sure has changed from the time that I had to leave a site, drive all the way out to where payphone was, drop the money in, call my boss, hope he was there, ask a question, and then may or may not get an answer and drive all the way back to the site. So that's where I began. But wow, in the last 3 decades plus, we've made some really incredible improvements, and things are changing all the time.
And more is on the way. I mean, I'm simply amazed at where we are with AI and the potentials of where we can go. Now, that's another discussion about the ethical boundaries of AI and the technology. But as this grows and as the bugs get worked out of it, I think we'll see more AI solutions incorporated into what we do in occupational safety and health. You mentioned something in a previous episode about GPS tracking, geofencing, things of that nature. How can geofencing help create a safer work environment for the worker?
So geofencing basically uses things like RFID tags, Bluetooth-enabled devices, etc. Some of it is sewn into or incorporated into PPE, like hard hats. And the concept really is that you're setting up areas where people are working and not so much controlling access, but at least monitoring who's going in and out of areas, such as subcontractors or people who are not qualified or trained to be in an area. But it also can be used for, where are the workers? Are they in a zone where accidents have been happening?
Right? I think that's way more efficient than back in the day when I first got started, everybody wanted to see your card. Show me your card. My card, I remember one time I left my card in my pants pocket. It got washed, demolished, because I'm not a good husband. I never take things out of my pocket, and I get fussed at pretty regular, including today, for messing up clothes, right? It's my fault. But hey, with geofencing, I can know whether or not this person's qualified, whether their training is up to date, whether they've got the knowledge, skills, and abilities on file to perform certain tasks. I think that's outstanding, because that's good information that is in real time, and it doesn't rely on James Junkin to remember to bring his card to work, which is very inefficient.
Mm-hmm. Let me just shift that over a little bit. The geofencing, there's actually controlled access to sites now. People are putting turnstiles in and doing facial recognition to allow people in and out of sites. Number one, to know who's there, but also to control who shouldn't be there, and also to know what training they have. And especially in places like New York City, where they do have other building and safety regulation requirements beyond OSHA. This is a really valuable tool to kind of know who's there, how they're trained, and where they're going to be working during the day. So construction sites, and I dare say probably some of the oil and gas manufacturing plants are probably doing the same thing. They have turnstile access, and they know who's on the site, when and where, and when they leave, for emergency purposes, even for just that purpose alone.
You know, Veriforce just acquired a company called Global Worker Pass. And really, that's what that's about, is understanding not who's on your location, how long they're on your location, should they be on your location? Do they have the qualifications to do things there? Do they have the right training, etc.? I'm really excited about the possibilities with Veriforce and Global Worker Pass moving into the future, because again, that's about making sure that we got the right people doing the right jobs at the right time. I think it'd be great, particularly when you start talking about trying to determine SSE ratios. Many companies have an SSE program, short service employee program. And we have in the policy, you know, you can't have but one SSE to 5 workers, but with the worker crisis that we have and the demand, sometimes that ratio gets messed up. And nobody understands it, nobody catches it, right? To try to make sure that we've got the right qualified people out on job sites. So I'm looking at it, really excited about the potentials of global worker pass, and that's centered around all this geofencing technology, et cetera. Here's another thing that has changed in our lifetimes.
Smartphones.
It wasn't that many years ago that I had a flip phone, right?
My father still has a flip phone.
And now, see, we're going back to the flip phone, but the flip phone just smartphone, but it flips, right? 2009. You remember the old iPhone commercial? There's an app for that.
Yeah.
Well, literally, there's an app for just about everything now, right?
100%. 100%. So, I mean, I can just peruse through my iPhone, and I can find a ton of things that are helpful on sites, you know, like noise and sound monitors. I mean, certainly they're not the same as a sound level meter or more sophisticated instruments, but they can give you a gut check on sound and noise. There are ergonomics apps. There are all those complicated equations that people do. The apps are doing it for you. Now, can it measure exposures to chemicals? Well, it can't do that, but there are apps for chemical hazards. And you know, when we used to flip through a book for emergency response, or to find out the NIOSH things or exposure levels that people can be exposed to, we used to have to flip through a book. Getting those books were hard. You had to purchase them and then you'd lose them. But now you can just open the app and look at the hazardous materials reference guide or the NIOSH guide right on your phone.
The ERG app has been one I've used for many years. You're right. I used to tote around the big old thick NIOSH pocket guide for chemical hazards, and now it's right there on my phone.
Regulations, regulations, right? Searchable regulations right on your phone.
I wish you could see it. I've got all the printed CFRs that are about this thick, you know, because I'm a book guy.
Yeah.
Everything I need from a regulatory standpoint is right here on my phone. Right here on my phone. Apps like you talked about, fall protection measurements, the emergency response stuff, ergonomic formulas, no need to memorize. We got an app for that now, right?
Yeah. Heat stress guidelines, weather apps to tell us the weather in real time, to watch it move towards us, away from us, around us. I mean, there are so many things that we used to either worry about or not worry about that we can actually track on our phones right now, or do on our phones, and do it quicker than we ever could before.
You know, one of the things that's been at safety conferences for probably the last 5 or 6 years, but now you're starting to see the price come down and people actually using these things, is wearables.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember when I first saw the exoskeleton, I was like, that's pretty cool, but that cost a whole bunch of money and it's not scalable. Well, now we're getting into a price where it can be scalable. So talk about, you know, wearables. When you usually think wearables, we think exoskeletons, but there are other things that are wearables, right?
Yeah, people have watches, they have sensors in hats or you know, bands around their heads, and they take biometric data to monitor workers for all different things, heart rate, temperature, um, as we said, location. All these things can be put into like a watch, or another wearable that really kind of monitors depending on what kind of situations people are going to be going into at work. And and really a lot of, in the past 3 to 5 years, I would say a lot of these devices have been ground truthed, with some really good research. And so, yes, when they first came out, it was very hard to get them. It was expensive, and they were hard to use. They were hard to figure out how you're going to use this data, right? But if you go forward to some of the other advances, you have software as a solution, right? And you
Right.
have digital management systems where this data comes into. The kicker there is that you have to have somebody who's savvy about managing that data and getting the outputs in order to use those wearable technologies in the way that they were intended.
Here's one where technology, I think, is going to fill a gap and is filling a gap. And one of our hub partners, Veriforce hub partners, predictive safety, has got some technology that we really find very interesting, and that is centered around fatigue. And fatigue is related, I guess, to help mitigate the potential for injuries and fatalities. But not only fatigue, but fit for duty, where we can also use the same technology for reasonable suspicion and impairment detection.
Yeah, yeah. And I know where you're going with this. I mean, we now have, in the United States, several states, I dare say almost half the states have legalized marijuana, even though it's on the federal list of drugs, that can't be in your system, per DOT. So, marijuana, cannabis is not as easily to detect in real time, right? It goes to lipids in your body and it can bioaccumulate there. But that doesn't mean you're high, right? A blood test or a urine test doesn't mean you're high or you're impaired at the time you're at work. But some of these things like predictive safety are looking at reaction times, gazes, like the cops do, when the police officers do when they do, um, alcohol stops, etc. And they're using these technologies to detect, reasonable suspicion.
Right. And so the predictive safety model is one I really like, because it's non invasive, if you will. It's something a worker does based on not based on a baseline that's set, then it determines that baseline based on reactions and pattern recognition. So regardless of educational background, of language barriers, all that's mitigated in the safety that they use. So I really think that's really good, because you're able to start seeing when workers are fatigued, when they may not be the most alert, and you can use that type of technology also as impairment detection, which I think could stand up in any type of adverse consequence for that employee.
Well, what's interesting is, and you mentioned this, is a lot of these technologies, and I believe predictive safety too. I don't want to speak out of turn. They are measuring you against you,
You
right?
against you.
You against you. And so, and there may be some small measure of measuring you against a population, but in general, you're taking the test to show you're not impaired versus your baseline, right? And how
Right.
impaired would you be, or how fatigued would you be versus your baseline? Because, theoretically, you're looking at, can you do things as fast and efficiently and as dexterous as you did the first time or the second time or the 10th time?
And I think it's also important when we're talking about fatigue management, a lot of times we have that's something that we do first thing in the morning, and I want to encourage people to do that. And if using a solution like predictive safety helps do that, then we know when people are getting to work whether they're already fatigued. But I'd encourage people to use that same technology throughout the day. It's real quick to
Exactly.
use that, right? But I know usually I'm at my best first thing in the morning, but by about 2 o'clock, I may be running out of gas, right?
Right.
So that helps me plan breaks, longer breaks, work schedules, rotating work, things of that nature. And it's all right there in technology that we have some data that we can quantify the decisions that we're making.
Yeah. And just not just kind of as a side note, this is what people have been doing with telematics in vehicles for a while now, right? They're looking at eyes on the road, mistakes made braking, signaling, all the lane changing, lane wavering, all of those things that can add up to something that shows you a driver's well-being. It can show if there's a problem medically. All of those things kind of wrap into monitoring all kinds of different factors and then coming to a decision of yes or no. Do we really need to take a look at this? You might not be able to tell for sure if somebody's fatigued, but you got enough data there in order to do the things that you said, like take breaks or shorten work schedules or take people off the road if it's a telematic situation.
You know, I've been really amazed in the training realm, the rise of virtual and augmented reality, VR and AR. You know,
Yep.
to me, that was something that came out. It's cool. It's great for a video game. Now we're seeing this in training and simulations for hazardous work environments.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you think about the cost of this, right? I mean, everybody's been in a store where they sell the Oculus Quest or some of these other AR VR equipment, and it's a big investment for some companies. But I will say this: there are companies now that own the equipment and will come out to your work site and actually do the training with you or for you with your employees, right? Whether it be operation of powered industrial trucks or training on hazardous locations, like you say, or lockout tagout situations,
Right.
or in high hazard jobs, such as a oil and gas manufacturing plant, right?
Mm.
Um, are they moving through a site and are they seeing the hazards? This is a great tool for those types of things.
And last, I want to close this out, but on this note, as a safety professional, digital tools for safety management on a daily basis is almost an absolute. Almost an absolute. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you how it is. I use that line a lot, right?
Yeah.
The ratio of safety professionals to workers is often 1 to 100.
Yeah. Or more.
Or more. I had a company not too long ago, it was 2 to 8,000.
That's crazy.
I don't even know how you manage that, right?
Yeah.
But no matter the ratio, you need to leverage technology. And so I'm seeing more things like digital JSAs, real time instant and accident investigation, reporting software, things that are then able to be able to track the analytics and the metrics related to incident and accident investigations, your leading indicators, your lagging indicators. I mean, paper is soon to be a thing of the past, I think.
Well, in some cases, right? But I would say this in response to your knowledge on this question, your comments. Um, Paper safety, where we just took a bunch of papers and we put them in the file, still happens. That was collecting data for the sake of collecting data. Should anybody ever ask, we're going to go in there and we're going to dig something out. But that can also happen with digital data collection, right? If you don't have somebody who's going to manage that data and extract salient things, then there's no use in collecting a lot of data in the first place, right? Part of our responsibility, especially in those companies where you can't get everywhere, 2 to 8,000, 1 to 100, you have to be putting in place those digital management tools, and you have to have somebody who's looking at that data on a daily basis and extracting the information in order to make good decisions. And not only to make good decisions, but to make good recommendations to management on how we can improve.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Now, I'll say this as we're kind of winding this down. I love technology, but we can get enamored with our gadgets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's nothing that can replace the human contact, right? Actually going and observing the work site and observing people at work and talking to folks that actually perform these tasks on a daily basis and getting their input. They are the experts in this field. The other thing I think is sometimes we get all this technology, but we really don't know how to use it.
Yep.
We have it. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've got computer programs on my computer I barely even know how to open, much less use. So if we're going to spend the money to buy the software, let's spend some money training people how to use the software.
Right.
If not, it just gets, it's an expenditure. It looks good. It sounds good. It sounds great in our ESG report, but it really is not providing a meaningful change there on the job site. Because
it's not helpful. It's not helpful if it's in there and you can't put your hands on it.
That's
just
right.
Like the piece of paper on the desk. If you can't find it, it doesn't exist.
So if it's not helping bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs, from hazardous jobs, do we really need it? But I'm excited about the potentials with technology. I encourage some of my safety professionals and brethren that are a little bit older, don't be afraid of technology, right? It will make your job a lot easier heading into the future, and change toward technology and technological solutions is inevitable.
Yep, totally agree. And hey, I'm going to wrap it up for us. Thanks again for listening to the Risk Matrix with Mr. James Junkin.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, and myself, Dr. Martin. I know we have good discussions on here every week. So if you like what we do, follow us, like us, share us. And, if you've got comments, good or bad, drop them in our LinkedIn posts or Veriforce's LinkedIn posts or on the YouTube channel. We're happy to get into a debate with you. And if your debate is good, you might find yourself on the show.
Thank everyone for watching. Until next time, y'all keep bringing those workers home safe.